of a history with this deck in the Open Series.
Kamich versus Ulanov is where we'll begin. Of course, when we do have updates on other matches, we will let you guys know. Our backup match will be Lowe versus Merc. That's Miracles versus Blue White Red Delver, as we assume that will be the match that takes the longest here in the top 8.
Yes.
Miracles playing Spoiler. But also, Miracles looks like it has a pretty nice road. Blue White Red Delver seems to be a good matchup. Elves in the semifinals looks to be a good matchup, and then we'll see what happens in the finals. Anything can happen there, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Miracles in the finals this evening.
My prediction is the winner of the 2-7 match will play against Belcher in the finals.
Wow. All right. That is a Wooded Foothills as we do begin here. Kamich is going to go down to 19. We'll see who wants to start things off.
This is one of the matchups where being on the play is so important because Goblin Guide on the play, very potent against Bug. On the draw, much less so.
Gonna search out a mountain here.
On the play, it's very likely to connect twice because on turn 1, you can't really offer much in the way of removal. You can only really play a Delver or a Deathrite Shaman. But on the draw, on turn 2, Abrupt Decay and Tarmogoyf both come online.
So we'll see where things will begin here for Kamich. See if there's a Goblin Guide or if it'll just be a Lava Spike. See players very happy they made the elimination rounds here. Now here's a Grim Lavamancer. So we'll see if this will resolve. There's Force of Will plus a blue card there in Ulanov's hand. See how much he actually cares about this threat.
Force of Will plus Tarmogoyf is a really good opening hand for Dennis. I mean, Tarmogoyf to me is the most important card in the matchup. He can't win a long game, oddly enough, because the burn deck has so many live draws. So he needs to shorten the length of the game, get a clock on that's faster than Brian's ability to cobble together lethal burn.
Force of Will removing Force of Will will take care of, that Grim Lavamancer. Just a fetch land and pass. It's rare for Bug Delver not to have a turn 1 play. Deathrite Delver, Ponder, Thoughtseize.
I would want to de-emphasize those cards quite a bit against a deck like Burn because of the Searing Blazes and Searing Blood effects.
There's a Chain Lightning going upstairs. Ulanov going to go down to 16. Let's make it 15 here with the fetch land.
You can look at his hand here. Sulfuric Vortex, Lightning Bolt, 2 copies of Searing Blaze. You can see why Tarmogoyf is so important.
Yeah.
No other creature sticking, and Vortex represents a lot of inevitability.
And right now, Tarmogoyf, I believe, would be a 4/5. There's a creature, a sorcery, instant, and a land in the graveyard. So the ability to live through a Searing Blaze is certainly important. But the goal here for Burn, of course, is normally it takes, I think in Legacy, 6 spells to get the job done.
6 spells plus 2 fetch lands.
No, they help you.
That's the recipe.
They help you, all right.
They do. It's rare for them to not cooperate a little bit.
Yeah, given the number of fetch lands that people play in this format, that does make some sense.
So you have all the 3 damage spells, 6 added up to 18, 2 fetch lands is 20, and then all your 4 balls, subtract 1 fetch land that you need.
Sure.
That's the math.
Okay. You've figured it out.
Yeah.
You've figured it out over your years playing Burn. Here's a Brainstorm at the end of turn from Ulanov.
And again, I like just using the Brainstorm right away here, not trying to get greedy, setting up some sort of main phase Brainstorm with a fetch land. He's just got to cast his stuff as fast as possible.
Yeah, you don't have that time to do those things. See a Wasteland, something else going to go on top here. There's also a fetch on there in Ulanov's hand, so has the ability to make it a pretty good Brainstorm.
And Wasteland is really nice for Ulanov here as well, because that protects him later on in the game, potentially from Price of Progress.
Yep.
Once he gets a Tarmogoyf on the table, he doesn't really need to cast anything for the rest of the game. He just needed to defend himself long enough for the Goyf to deal lethal.
Yeah, then the race is on.
Yeah.
And a lot of times Tarmogoyf is enough to win that race. So Ulanov going to shuffle up here after searching up an Underground Sea, opening himself up to Price of Progress here, but he really doesn't have much of a choice.
Yeah.
His deck is always going to be soft to it.
Whenever I play against these tempo decks, there's 2 cards I fear. Number 1 is Tarmogoyf, and number 2 is Nibble Mongoose. Everything else in their deck doesn't really matter a whole lot.
It's got to be nice not caring about Delver of Secrets.
You're actually thrilled when they cast it because it means your Searing Blaze is on.
And here is Tarmogoyf. It is going to be a 4/5, so let's put on those racing shoes. Kamich at a high life total right now, sitting at 19. And we'll see what Brian can do here. Again, you see the hand. Couple copies of Searing Blaze, a Bolt, and a Sulfuric Vortex. The draw here is another copy of Searing Blaze. A little bit of awkward makeup of the hand here, simply because I think in a perfect world he'd like to go Searing Blaze plus Bolt your Goyf.
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, right now, if I'm Brian here, I probably just cast nothing. I don't like Searing Blazing here on the main phase if that's Brian's plan here. I would like to give Dennis one more shot at playing something like Deathrite Shaman or Delver Secrets, so you cash it in for a little bit of value. Because you have access to this play at the end of Dennis's turn. There's no rush to do this right now.
Sure. By the way, the Blaze will be fired off here. The landfall trigger, of course, did occur due to Scalding Tarn switching on a mountain. So 3 will go to Tarmogoyf, of course, not kill it, and 3 to go Ulanov. You see the hand right now, again, 2 Blazes, a Bolt, and a Sulfuric Vortex. So, as we mentioned right at the top, the race is certainly on at this point.
So Dennis with a reshuffle here. And now the Searing Blaze has resolved. And I assume no follow-up here from Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I'm checking his deck list here to see if there's a Daze. I think that there are 4 copies of Daze. I mean, there's the potential for Ulanov to Daze this. He could also Force of Will this. So again, those are all actual possibilities.
I don't really mind Force of Will here if he wants to, because then it means he gets to play Wasteland and attack for 4 turn and have protection against Price of Progress. But he might be able to do better. I mean, at some point you almost always get to Force of Will to save 3 points of damage. That play is nearly always afforded to you, so there's no huge rush to do that there.
There's a Tombstalker that was drawn. Not sure if Ulanov has the ability to play that. There's a Wasteland. This is an attack for 4. Kevin's going to go down to 14. Just going to pass the turn back. And this is basically how you see these games go a lot. There's a Lightning Bolt that's drawn. So we could see Bolt on Tarmogoyf, potentially.
I think that he needs to it's really risky for him to go after the Tarmogoyf here. And the race is not necessarily bad for him. I think that what I would like to do this turn is probably actually just Searing Blaze for 1, just to get the 2 mana spells out of your hand, because it's easier for you to break up 1 mana over the course of other spells you're casting.
Yeah. There's Bolt number 1. There's Bolt number 2. So Tarmogoyf's going to die. That could end up very poorly.
Yeah, that was a big risk, but Brian was, Brian is paid off for that play now.
And there's Nylon. I think this is part of the reason that you like saving Force of Will there, too. Is in case something like that does happen, you like to defend your Tarmogoyf.
It's very rare for you to not be able to cash that card in for 3 points, to save 3 points of damage. It's almost impossible.
Yeah. Here's a Wasteland. Now here's a Deathrite Shaman. That's going to deal 2 over to Ulanov just to cast that. See if Kamich draws a land.
I mean, if this Searing Blaze gets turned on here.
Attack for 2. I think we're going to see a Chain Lightning go somewhere.
Yeah, there's too many creatures in the graveyard. It's ugly to use your removal spells on creatures like this, but he has to in this spot.
Down to 12 goes Kamich. So you see 12 to 9.
And now Ulanov trying to determine if it's even worth casting his Deathrite into a face of an Eidolon.
Kamich going to take a draw. Fire Blast 3. So just a land?
Well, this is lethal if he
Oh,
attacks.
no, yeah, you're right.
Well, I mean, he still has to risk the Daze here. And if he pushes, then he loses. I guess he can flow 2 and Fire Blast, and that means that Daze doesn't work anymore because of the Eidolon trigger. So he can lead there.
Oh, yeah, that's really true, actually.
This is a much riskier way to do it, because if Daze gets
Daze
thrown
a
out-
disaster.
Yeah.
I think waiting is a little risky, too.
Yeah, Brian's taking a lot of risks here. I mean, letting Dennis here gain 2 life. I think that I would have floated to Fire Blasted and then Searing Blazed.
Well, there's another Deathrite. So Ulanav's going to go down to 2. Cammage will take a draw. There's another copy of Fire Blast, but redundant copies don't do anything.
This again, I would start just float 2 and Fire Blast. It's so hard to imagine Dennis getting out of it.
I think Ulanov only has 1 card in hand, too, so you don't have to worry about Force of Will.
Yeah,
Actually, I think there's 2 cards over there, but he's already used 2 copies of Force of Will, so it would force him to have Perfect.
Well, the Death Right's not active. He only has access to 4 mana.
Yeah, he has 1 Death Right that is active, but he can just float 2. Yeah, and Fire Blast. I mean, there's nothing he can do about it. So I mean, it would require Force of Will and blue card. It'd have to be 3rd Force of Will. Yeah, and it's not there, so there you go. Brian Cammage is going to win game number 1 here over Dennis Ulanov. Burn does win game 1 here over Bug Delver. And we'll bring it back to the booth because it's time for trivia.
Yes.
A premium giveaway. What do you want to do? You want the rules or the question? It's your call.
I'll take the rules. We have a pattern where I usually give the contest for the 6 months and so forth.
I want to open it up, though.
Well, yeah, I appreciate it, but, I like the pattern that we have.
All right, fine. I'm not going to change it here for you. All right.
Okay. Cedric is going to ask you a question. You will tweet your answer at SCG Live and hashtag SCG Premium. If the correct responses won't be selected at random for 3 free months of Star City Games Premium. Don't worry about answering first. Just answer accurately. And please keep in mind that this contest is run at the sole discretion of StarCityGames.com, and Twitch is in no way affiliated with giveaways on his stream.
Take a look here at Brian Cammage's deck. He is the overall 1 seed here with Burn. There's some creatures. There's a bunch of lands. And then there's some burn spells. However, there's a 2 of enchantment. And if you can't name that 2 of enchantment here in Cammage's deck list, hashtag the answer with the hashtag of SCG Premium. Make sure you are following at SCG Live. And we will announce the winner conclusion of our quarterfinal round here. I know this is a card you're a big fan of.
I am. It's not necessarily always in the main deck, but it's always in the 75.
Yeah?
Yeah.
A lot of times I've seen you having a sideboard for tournaments.
Yeah, I mix it up. Sometimes I think it's a main
numbers.
deck card, and sometimes I think it's a sideboard card.
Again, hashtag SCG Premium at SCG Live. We will announce the winner at the conclusion of our quarterfinal round as we will take a look at the sideboards here. And you have Dennis's in front of you, and I still think this is a bad matchup after sideboard.
It is, and he's not really bringing a lot to the table here. 2 copies of Gravedigger's Cage, 2 Pithy Needles, a Sylvan Library, 2 Disfigures, 2 Golgari Charms, a Crozan Grip, 2 copies of Spell Pierce, a Submerge, a Vendilion Click, and a Maelstrom Pulse. I think the 2 Spell Pierces do a lot here, and the 2 Disfigures as well, but that's really it. Not a lot going on. I would probably cut... It's tough to say what I would cut here. Probably, I would guess Delver of Secrets is his worst card here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to die.
Against decks that have Searing Blaze, it changes the equation quite a bit. Any creature that gets killed by it, and it's the same thing with Searing Blood in Standard. Anything that gets killed by it, you have to be sure is actively positive for you, because the situations where it gets hit by one of those effects is so bad.
Other side of things, 2 Ensnaring Bridge, 3 Relic Progenitors, 3 Vexing Shusher, 2 Mindbreak Trap, 2 Searing Blood, and then 3 Smash the Smithereens. I expect Searing Blood, not Smash the Smithereens, to come in.
Relic is excellent as
Relic
well.
is fantastic. It's great against Terminwave, great against Deathrite Shaman. It's a really good card in this matchup, actually.
Brian may bring in the Vexing Shushers, though I think they are not great in this matchup. Dennis does not have a lot of counter spells. A lot of them are soft counters, which are awkward to set up at times against with Vexing Shusher. The mana left over to use the Shusher could just be used to pay a Spell Pierce or a Daze, so it's not very effective there. And the fact that Dennis has so many ways to invalidate a 2/2 for 2 means I'm not a big fan of it in the matchup. And there's nothing really great for him to cut. I mean, on the draw, it's reasonable for Brian to cut Goblin Guide, especially when Dennis is bringing in copies of Disfigure. And other than that, there really isn't any dead weight in the deck. I guess Sulfuric Vortex is not great against a deck that can race you and plays Abrupt Decay, but it's hard for him to make room.
Well, we'll see if anything does change here moving forward. Again, when we do have updates here on our other matches, we will certainly let you know what we do have. We will have at least one Elves deck moving forward here to the semifinals. Chances are against Miracles, which will be a tough road here for Brandon Smith or Scott Alter. William Lowe playing Miracles, Andrew Murch playing Blue Red Delver. So whoever does win that match will go on to play Elves. And then the winner of this one here between Burn and Bug Delver will play likely against Belcher?
That's my best guess. I think Belcher has a pretty strong matchup against Elves, especially game 1. I mean, the Goblin Charbelcher draws, there's just not much that they can do.
Belcher always seems to be a deck that makes it, makes like a pretty deep run into a tournament, but then runs into a Force of Will deck and doesn't win, ends up losing. And for Sonny Aparicio, able to make it through, and now he's got a really good side of the bracket.
And the one time we had him on camera, he beat Force of Will.
Yeah.
He was able to beat it with Empty the Warrens.
Yeah.
So.
And if things really do break his way, I mean, you said we might see Belcher in the finals. It's realistic for Belcher or Bird to win this tournament.
Yeah, well, if the Elves player advances, I think that Brian on the play with his configuration, Searing Blaze main, Lava Mancer main, more Searing Bloods on the sideboard, I believe he has a slight favorite against Elves. Not significant, but slight. If he's matched up against Goblin Charbelcher, his deck is basically Eidolons of the Great Revel and nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So winning on the draw, I guess Brian, as the first overall seed, could theoretically be on the play twice against Charbelcher, play an Eidolon on turn 2, and maybe that's good enough.
There is I don't think that's
We're talking,
happen.
it's a long shot. It's a long shot.
Yeah, the chances of Burn beating Belcher are very slim. Very, very slim.
Well, he also has 2 Mindbreak traps in his sideboard.
I mean, he'll have to mulligan aggressively to his 2 of, and you can beat Mindbreak Trap with a Belcher hand if you sequence things appropriately.
Just, the matchup is really bad for Burn. It's upended me in tournaments numerous times, but Brian has pretty much the best cards you can have for the matchup.
Sure,
So
sure.
he's doing what he can. He's still probably very low chances to win the matchup.
I was surprised. I'm going to say I was surprised we don't. Oh my, what?
Woohoo!
I was going to say I was surprised that we haven't heard a result yet, but Ian Anderson has won game 1 over Belcher.
And as we mentioned, the Empty the Warrens plan fraught with peril against Elves because they can flood the board, and Elves apparently beat 18 Goblins on the first turn. 18.
Now, Aparicio is on the draw, so I mean that's the only way that's actually possible is if he's on the draw. But wow, that's insane. That's a turn 3 kill.
Yeah, that's actually not too hard to imagine, right? You play something on turn 1, they play 18 Goblins.
Yeah.
You play a bunch of stuff, they attack you for 18, which is not lethal.
Yep.
And then
you
turn
crit
3,
payment.
yeah, you crit
Yeah,
payment.
you
It's
natural
not even,
crit payment.
not even really that hard.
If Belcher's on the play, that's like basically impossible.
Yeah.
But if Belcher is on the draw, I mean it's obviously possible because we just heard that it happened.
Yes.
This is why seeding matters.
Seeding matters a lot.
This is why playing in the last round, if you can, I think is actually really, really important.
Yeah, Brian was actually 7-0 in this tournament, was looking to double draw, got paired against someone who was XO-1, and Brian said, well, I'm not conceding to you, let's play, won the match, and now was 8-0 and got to lock up the first overall seed. Critical in Legacy, and Burn, one of the decks you think of the most that's biased towards playing or drawing.
William Lowe does win game 1 with Miracles over Andrew Mertz playing blue at Red Delver. Even though Miracles does take a long time to win, it's not hard for them to establish the lock against Delver pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's a grind, of course, but the Delver deck is so threat light. There's so few individual cards you actually have to worry about out of the Delver deck that once you stem the initial tide of threats and soft counters, it's really Miracle's game to lose.
Well, Ulanov was really on the play here. Still a tough matchup if he's on the play on the draw, but things do get better here.
Yeah, this is he has tools for the matchup, but this is one I would be happy to play all day if I was Burn.
Well, let's begin things with just a Misty Rainforest. Cabbage will take a draw here. Looks like there's a Goblin guy in the grip. Wooded Foothills is going to put Cabbage down to 19. I think a perfect start. I mean, I think I have to imagine, because Goblin Guy gets worse over the course of the game, you have to start there.
Yep. All your burn spells, they deal the amount of damage that's written on the card at all times. Your Goblin Guide has a range, and the sooner the better.
I can go from 2 to 6.
Yeah.
If it deals 6, it's like impossible to lose. Ha! Take that! 18 Goblins on turn 1 worked this time.
Yeah.
Being on the play is different than being on the draw.
Correct. Things change. When the game goes for 3 total turns, when you're on the play, you get to take 2/3 of the turns.
That's really good.
That's a big advantage.
That's really good. Zealand's going to search up a Underground Sea. You see there's a Daze over there. This is a Brainstorm. He's going to Brainstorm first and then probably Daze after.
Well, he's got 2 paths here. He can say, I'm just going to daze this, or he can say, I'm going to put some lands on top and try to draw some cards. Usually when they do the second thing, they get killed. But people do like to do this.
Yeah.
Oh, I draw a land. It's a free card.
Yeah,
Now-
don't make it too crazy.
Now, in fairness, when you have Tarmogoyf in hand, it makes it a little more compelling to do that. Because if your next play blanks the Goblin Guide, you can let it hit you once.
You're willing to take 2, but you're only willing to take 2 one time.
Correct. And this is the issue I have with Guide on the draw. Just Dennis can fend it off pretty easily.
There's no guarantee it'll get dazed. Yeah, okay, Force of Will. Removing daze.
This is a very aggressive line. This means that Dennis wants to deploy Tarmogoyf on turn 2.
He's been using Force of Wills very, very aggressively.
Doesn't want to daze here because he wants to make sure on turn 2 he's playing a Goyf.
And Goyf's also going to be large because there's a creature, an instant, and a land, so it's going to be a 3/4. He's going to sacrifice Delta immediately, go down to 17, and try to play the game that he was trying to play last game.
With the exception of the Force of Will on the bolt in game 1, I like Dennis's approach to the matchup. He knows what's important here, which is just get on board as fast as possible and just try to race with Tarmogoyf. And this is also the issue that I have with Eidolon on the draw against Tarmogoyf
Yeah,
decks.
it's quite poor.
It's not even clear he can cast it now.
That's how he's going to spend his entire turn, is casting Eidolon. Then you're going to get hit by Goyf, and then all of his spells, of course, will deal him damage outside of Fire Blast. And Goyf will allow you to win the race there pretty easily, I think.
Yeah.
We also can't forget, too, that if Eidolon ends up dying, that's an enchantment in the graveyard for Tarmogoyf.
Oh, yeah.
So that could become a 4/5.
An Abrupt Decay, Daze, it's pretty likely to die.
Yeah. Cameron's going to untap and take a draw here. It's a Grim Lavamancer.
I would consider playing the Lavamancer and bolting here instead of playing the Eidolon. Because, it's a little bit better in the event that Daze is in hand. It's not even clear you can cast the Eidolon this game, and the Lavamancer can do some work getting cards out of your graveyard and maybe shrinking Tarmogoyf a little bit.
There's Lavamancer. I can try to control Tarmogoyf a little bit.
Yeah, I like this.
And Chain Lightning's going to go upstairs.
Now this, I actually don't think I would cast in this spot because it increases the Tarmogoyf to a 4/5. There's no sorcery in the graveyard currently. It doesn't look like Brian's so bottlenecked on mana that he's not going to have an opportunity to play this Chain Lightning down the road. So I think growing the Goyf here is not great. Now, if he gets on tap with the Lavamancer, he just gets to remove it from the graveyard immediately, but there's a risk here.
Lunoff had the option of Daze there, and he chose not to. How do you feel about that?
The Daze is, maybe he wants to save that for Price of Progress?
Yeah, sure. At least it's just to pick up a land.
Right, exactly.
It might not even counter it, but just to get one land, take 2 less damage.
Yes.
There's Abrupt Decay to get Grim Lavamancer off the table.
And Dennis did this in lieu of playing the Delver, which again, I like. Just protect your life total.
I don't like playing Delver in this matchup. Ugh.
Yeah, I think it's the worst card. At least Deathrite has the upside of, if it gets online.
There's Eidolon. But you can see exactly how poor Eidolon is right now. You see the life totals are even at 14s, but it's difficult for Camus to be able to cast any more spells now. And, of course, we could see this Eidolon just on chump blocking duty right away.
Yeah.
Here's a Daze. Going to pay 1. I think there's a real shot here where we don't see that land ever come back into play.
Yeah, he may cast it. He may redeploy it if he wants to cast Tombstalker. I think that's the only card that would justify putting that land back into play. Again, the Goyf is more than enough to win this game, especially with Eidolon in play on Brian's side. That's doing more harm than good for Brian at this point.
Here's an attack for 4. I was going to search for the land now, so.
And I think this means that we're going to see Tombstalker. Although, was it necessary to sacrifice that fetch land?
5, 6. Depending on what he wants to remove and the ability to keep Tarmogoyf large.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, the graveyard is a little bit scattered there. It's hard to see exactly what's there, but if he's able to keep Tombstalker into a 4/5, this ends up mattering.
I mean, it's a little dangerous because going to 13 now means that Fire Blast and 3 bolts are lethal.
I just like that you know the math just right away without having to thinking about it.
The
That's all.
points matter, man.
Yeah.
You don't win by a lot.
Yeah, just this combination of cards will kill you. Kamage going to draw a card. I think there's a Fire Blast over there.
There's a Rift Bolt.
Okay, it's a Rift Bolt.
And I think this turn, the play needs to be suspend Rift Bolt and chump block. The problem with, I guess he can still,
He can still chump block, right?
well, the problem is that if he suspends the Rift Bolt here with the Eidolon in play, Dennis may not attack with Tarmogoyf. He may just let him have the Eidolon in play because he's going to get locked.
Yeah, sure.
So I think all I would have done that turn is suspended the Rift Bolt and passed with the intent of chump blocking.
Because if Tombstalker comes in now, attacks for 5, puts you to 3. Rift Bolt has to come off suspend. That'll put you to 1. And now Ulanov is actually opening himself up to getting killed this turn.
Right.
I think this might be a him, though. But him's not great.
No, it's not.
Yeah, this is a price of progress.
He's gonna fetch here. He's drawn live next turn. I mean, we are in top deck of bolt range now.
Well, so this is going to be a 4. Ulanov's going to get a 6. Rift Bolt's going to, yeah. I was thinking it's going to put him a 4 lane to Fire Blast, but that's not true.
Yeah. No, now it's 3, and getting back to cracking that fetch land. Now all sorts of outs are turned on. If it was 4, we're talking about just price of progress, maybe Fire Blast. But now there's a lot of bolts that are lethal.
Down to 3. 1 draw here for Kamage. See, Dennis knows it. We are knocking and looking, one at a time.
Just 1.
What is this? It is a mountain.
Want, want.
We're going to play a 3rd one.
Exciting stuff.
Yep. Bug Delver able to barely hold on, but it's those little things that you do mention, and you can tell, I mean, your burn experience shows, of just, if he leaves the Eidolon in play, doesn't attack with Tarmogoyf, Kamage is on a no-outer.
Yes.
There's no way to get back up. Not on a no-outer, Fire Blast.
Exactly
Fire Blast.
Yep.
But you'd rather cut your opponent down to 4 outs as opposed to a whole bunch and have to sweat the draw.
Yeah, it's tough. You have to fight a lot of your instincts when you're playing against a deck like Burn because the game isn't like other games. And things like, I don't want to attack because I don't want my opponent to chump block is a factor that it isn't in normal games. So, but overall, Dennis has approached the games the way that I like it. He's being very aggressive and force of willing things to try to get Tarmogoyf into play at the highest life total possible and try to ride that all the way to victory. It's the right recipe. I haven't liked every play, the specifics, the tactics. I've not been in agreement with it the entire time, but the strategy, I like what Dennis is bringing to the table.
I'm dying for an update on the Belcher match. I think that if it's still going, it's bad news for Belcher.
Probably.
That has to be the case. Another Belcher player here, Zach Mesa, is actually watching behind Sonny Aparicio to see if he's able to get the job done. Ian Anderson playing Elves right now as well. Brandon Smith and Scott Alter, not too much of a surprise, they're headed to game 3.
No.
I think each player who, of course, plays first there is going to win. So Smith, presumably, will be on the play for game number 3. William Lowe playing Miracles up a game over Andrew Murch playing Blood Red Delver. That is our backup match. And again, Sonny Aparicio playing Belcher against Ian Anderson playing Elves. They're in game number 3 as 18 Elves were no good game 1. 18 Goblins were no good game 1. 18 Goblins were good game 2. But since we haven't heard an update yet, I don't think things are looking good for Belcher.
Probably not.
One card that actually gets turned on for Anderson after sideboard because he's on the play for game 3 is Thoughtseize and Cabal Therapy. Therapy's harder to hit with, but Thoughtseize is great.
And the thing about playing against Belcher is it doesn't really even matter what you hit. Just getting anything out of their hand.
Actual anything.
Anything's fine.
They need a high density of cards to operate with. And, one of the things with Therapy is in that matchup, it's so hard to know what card to name because all of the mana that the deck generates is redundant. And then trying to name a win condition. If you name Empty and they have Burning Wish, you miss. If you name Belcher and they have Burning Wish or Empty, you miss. So Therapy's not great unless you have information, which Gitaxian Probe and Thoughtseize do provide.
Yeah.
Just another reason Probe is so good.
Just one of 1,004 reasons.
Yeah. Indeed.
Yeah.
So Burn will be on the play here, and that seems like trouble for Ulanov.
Although he has missed on turn 1 a lot.
That's true.
Both games he's actually played a land and passed.
Yeah, that's true.
Though his hands have given him, again, the tools that he needs here, in my mind.
And the aggressive use of Forcible I've liked in most cases. So the general idea is you just counter something.
Yeah. It's very rare that you're supposed to be countering random bolts that aren't really doing very much, but the creatures on turn 1 have the potential to deal a lot of damage.
See Ulnov there with a Grand Prix Moscow shirt. Just a couple weeks ago, actually. Maybe last week. In Moscow doing battle. That's pretty cool.
A Globetrotter.
Yeah.
Oh. I've never been to Russia. That's on the list.
You know, that's not close.
No, it's not close.
So.
Though based on last name, I would assume the man has some history in the area.
I
If
imagine.
he's attending Grand Prix Moscow and then at the Vegas Open the following week.
Maybe he just really likes Vegas.
Maybe. Could be, yeah.
Oh, Russia's the hometown.
Okay.
Samara, Russia. There you go. Makes more sense now. Yeah, he really likes Vegas.
Yeah.
Who can blame him? You said Russia's on the list. What's number 1 on the list?
Of countries that I want to go to that I haven't been to yet.
Correct.
Or number 1 on
Or
my list,
places.
Rome. Rome is number 1.
Okay. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really good. The Colosseum is like you're in a movie or something. It's like not believable that it's a real place.
Yeah.
And that it's just still standing.
And if the situation ever stabilizes a little bit, I would like to go. I think that going on a safari once would be cool. So, Kenya, Uganda, that area of East Africa by Lake Victoria is on my list as well. But number 1 is Rome. I've never been. Everyone who's been there says it's incredible.
I want to see more places around Italy. I've been to Rome. I haven't been anywhere else in Italy. Italy, I think that was my favorite place to go when I was traveling out for the Pro Tour. That and Prague. Prague was really fun.
Yeah.
Really cool city.
That was kind of after my time. My last big, I feel like I guess London was my last real international PT.
2004. 2005, yeah, I was there.
The subway bombings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my first day there. I actually had to convince my parents to go. It took me like 3 months to do that.
and then there's the bombings.
Yeah, and so right before the tournament, like I finally convinced my mom and dad to let me go. I think like 2 weeks before the tournament. So my dad bought me like a $1,500 flight. We had a passport, expedited all this stuff, and I'm just a dumb kid. So I went over there with like Tim Ayton and some other people, and I didn't have a place. I didn't have a place to stay.
Yep.
I stayed with like Tim Ayton, Gadiel Cipher, John Pelkak. Okay, and I didn't really have a place to stay because I just didn't plan anything. So the bombings happened the day we get there. And I don't even think anything of it. I don't call my parents for 2 days later.
And they're wondering what happened to their little city.
Not only did I not call them 2 days later, but I just called them when like the sun was up in London, just assuming the sun was up in Ohio, which that's not true. So I called them at like 3 in the morning, and my mom gave me a stern talking to, words that I cannot say on air. That's what my mother said to me. I learned a valuable lesson. Communicate with your parents.
Yep.
Also, plan things when you go to another country for the first time.
Valuable lessons.
Yes, all around. Also, open Umezawa's Jite.
Yep.
Another lesson I learned at Pro Tour London. A Rift Bolt will be suspended on turn 1.
I lost a match in that Pro Tour to Steve Staden, whose first play of the game was turn 4, 2-2. Turn 5, Jite equip. And
You lose.
Was not close.
You lose. Right away.
And Dennis with the Tarmogoyf in hand again. So another good opening.
Does he have a turn 1 play this time? No turn 1 play all 3 games.
But he's got the important turn 2 play.
He does have the best turn 2 play in his deck, but it's crazy not to see a Ponder or a Deathrite or a Delver. I understand that Deathrite and Delver aren't great in the matchup because they can die to the Searing Blood and Blaze effects, but it's really just surprising not to see a turn 1 play.
Yeah.
There's a Chain Lightning.
And this is a pretty good draw here for Brian contextually. It looks like Liliana and Disfigure are in Dennis's hand, and he doesn't look like he's presenting any creatures. And now 2 fetch lands. Good stuff.
Hey, I mean, it's time for Tarmogoyf to get to work. Pretty simple.
It's not quite the critical 13, but we're closing in.
Looking at a 3, 4, 2, oh no, 2, 3? Huh.
Yeah. Still protected from Searing Blaze.
And Bolt.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
There are a set of cards that can kill that, though.
Chain Lightning can. And
Yeah.
that assumes Dennis has no instant, no days, no force will.
Yeah, sure. Okay, that makes sense.
If I'm Brian, I'm ignoring this Tarmogoyf. I think he's got enough gas in his hand to win the race.
I wonder if Ulanov has the blue card plus force again.
He better, because I think Brian's got some heaters.
And Ulanov's already at 12. Yeah, jeez.
Oh, yeah.
You weren't kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Couple of copies of Price of Progress. Don't play more lands.
Yep.
Or have a daze. One of the two. Cambridge is going to sacrifice this fetch land right away.
So if Brian is able to piece together, I think, one more bolt here, he should be able to push through everything. And he's not under that much pressure, too, which is also important. So he's got time. He can afford to not play into days for the rest of the game. Yeah, I'm just casting Searing Blaze.
Just to get your 3?
Yeah, whatever.
Sure. It's not going to kill Tarmogoyf, obviously, and that's fine. Like, you put your opponent
Right.
down to 9. I think that's all you care about.
It's just a 2-mana bolt. It's just a Searing Spear. That's fine.
You could have at least called it a Volcanic Hammer.
Yeah. A
That's
Volcanic
because
Hammer.
you're old school. I would call it a Lightning Strike.
A Fire Ambush.
I don't know what that is.
Portal 3 Kingdom Volcanic Hammer.
See, there you go. That's all you right there. Is that sorcery?
What, you want to test me? You want to throw another one at me? I know all of them.
I hope there's a time that knowing that is the right one to play. I really hope that comes up sometime.
It's tough. It's really tough to rationalize.
Mountain the draw. We are in range.
And now we're going to play the staring contest here. I don't think Brian's going to move until Dennis taps low. Yeah, I like this from Brian. Just hold steady.
This is a time where instants are instants. You don't have to do anything.
Make him cast something. I mean, he's going from 15 to 12. He's got a lot of draw steps to find the last spell.
Yeah, he's got so much time. There's a Delver. Yeah, this matchup seems horrible for Bug. I thought for a little while it might be okay because of Tarmogoyf and Deathrite Shaman and some other cards, but this one seems really tough for them.
The matchup against Rug Delver is so much worse because they get to the ground faster with Nimble Mongoose. You can't kill it. They have bolts in their deck to try to win the race.
Yeah. There's no winning of the race here. Like your trump card is Hymnotorok.
Right.
It seems like. And that card's good against Burn.
But it
it's
has to
not
be
great.
turn 2.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you can start sequencing your spells so it doesn't matter.
So here's a Price of Progress. If Ulanov has days, it's great. Just because you can pick up the Underground Sea and just take 2, go to 7.
Yep.
There's a Force of Will.
I mean,
removing days.
That really only saves him 1 point here. That's the thing that I'm not a huge fan of that because the Force of Will is 1 life, and the days itself could have picked up a land. So at that point, you're talking about.
There's a Disfigure. And Guide Trigger there with the attack. Better stop this game, please. Thank you.
So now we're in a spot where if.
And there's the Guide Trigger. That's important.
Well, now he's got lethal right here, and Dennis is drawing a Force of Will next turn. I think Brian's got to pull the trigger. I think he's just got to go for it right now.
Especially when you see Force of Will on top.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He might not get another shot. And I think Dennis, by not dazing last turn,
You got Fire Blast, yeah.
I mean, now Spell Pierce Daze is turned on.
See, that doesn't have either. All right, that's going to do it. Brian Cambridge is going to win this match over Dennis Ulanov with a Force of Will on top of his deck. Burn moving on to play against either Elves or Belcher.
Got into exact 0.
Yeah, geez, it's wow. It's going to move on to play against Elves.
All right.
Wow.
I mean, he's the ones. Now, the Elves matchup, I think there's a perception. It's very similar to Merfolk. People think that matchup is a lock for Burn. It is not. They can easily overpower you. Brian's got some great tools for the matchup. Grim Lavamancer, his Searing effects, Eidolon, I think he's favored, but it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, Eidolon is really good against them.
Now, that said, much better for Brian to be playing against Elves than against Belcher. No,
Of
no
course.
question about it.
I think Belcher was the deck that side of the bracket was terrified of.
Yeah.
I think if you're Ian, you didn't want to play against it, but the fact that you're the 4 seed instead of the 5 is huge. And then, of course, Belcher can beat Bug Delver, and of course, it can beat Burn. So Belcher being out of the tournament right now is huge for that side of the bracket. And it could be huge for the other side of the bracket, too, because it could play it against Elves again.
Yeah, for sure. And